Hello everybody and welcome to Planet Valenti Video. I'm Dan Valenti and our show today is the first actual traipse down campaign 2023, the mayoral side of it, as we have really the first time these two have been together on camera running for the corner office. We've done shows each individually, which you've probably seen, with Peter Marchetti, City Council President. Pete, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
And John Krol, former Ward 6 Councilor, and going for that office now. John, thanks.
And Vice President, Dan. Don't forget.
Oh, Council VP. Yes. Well, you were a heartbeat away. It's amazing.
I love it. Thank you.
I should like to begin by asking a couple of three questions on behalf of citizens. Those questions, we had a lot of them submitted to me. You should ask them this, ask them that. But the first one I thought was a clever way of getting at the vision thing. And in our individual talks, we each brought that up. But I want to ask the question this way. Let's say, there's a hypothetical, of course, you're king of Pittsfield or absolute dictator, whatever. There is no council to co-govern. There's no one to answer to except your decisions by fiat. And they immediately will have to be carried out. What were the first couple of things you would do if you had that power, John?
First of all, I would bring downtown foot patrol to our center city, and I would fix the issue with the 6-month wait for a mental health appointment with the Breen Center, which is the case for those on Mass Health. Those two things, in addition to recruiting more businesses to our downtown, those are things that I would do. In the schools, one thing I look at is changing the way that we approach our teachers and their growth in our district, because we're losing too many of our very best teachers by the way that our personnel works. Our best teachers are locked into where they're working because they do a great job, and the principals have veto power. I would like to change that to allow more growth within the district because we're losing too many of our good teachers, which is making our schools struggle more, and we're losing more in school choice. So school choice dollars, if you gave me the kingdom and the keys, those would be the top things that I would do. And I would also make Pittsfield more business friendly, because right now it is very difficult to do business in Pittsfield. The permitting process is clunky at best and sometimes very extremely difficult at
We will get
worst.
into that,
Absolutely.
I'm sure, in the course of this hour plus, whatever goes. Pete, you've got the magic wand. You can wave it, and it happens.
So I would definitely start focusing on mental health issues. It is clear to me, for a whole host of reasons, that mental health is a major factor that plays in our homeless community. It plays in some of the activity that we see in our downtown. People need help, and they can't find the resources. It's clear across the board. You can talk to the folks at the Breen Center, they need more resources. You can talk to the folks at Berkshire Pathways, they need more resources. So I think at the heat of a lot of our problems that we talk about, the panhandling, the homeless issue, mental health is at the forefront.
Crime.
It's all at the forefront of mental health issues and substance use disorder, and we need to tackle that problem. And that's not something that a mayor normally talks about, right? We would normally say that this is something that we can't solve. It's a state problem. It's a national problem. It's an epidemic.
How could the city actually solve that problem? I could see it might respond to it, but is it within the city's capacity to solve?
Well, so you told me how to magic wand.
If you had the magic
So
wand,
I have a magic
we
wand,
could.
so therefore I can create all the money
All
I
right,
need
fair enough.
for those resources.
It's interesting
And-
that
But I think part of it is that you say, how can a city do something? Well, we can advocate to our state and federal delegation for more resources. So that is something that the city can do. And I think after that, I would tie more education and business community together. Look at what George Haddad did with Toyota and Taconic. We need more of those kind of programs to show. And one of the things that we've talked about is that from the time that I was probably a high school graduate to present, we tell children that they must have a 4-year degree or more to be someone in life. And look what happened to our trades.
Well, that's not strictly true, yeah.
But
Trades,
look
yep.
what happened to our trades.
Yep.
But we pushed generations of people into a 4-year degree, and now our trades are hurting. And if you do the research, if once you've graduated from an apprentice and you're in the trades, you can make similar dollars to those in the private sector working in the business community.
What I find interesting about the two magic wand responses that you both agree that is a key issue for the city. I guess you're saying a mental health crisis. I want to ask you, rate the job of our state legislators thus far in not getting Pittsfield the resources that it needs. You say our delegation has done a good job or no?
Look, I know that our friends at the Breen Center have met with the delegation, talked about this. The reimbursement for Mass Health has not changed. Well, it has not changed in about 13 years. Now, is that the only issue? No, there's staffing issues. Look, staffing is a challenge in every single industry across the board. I don't care if you're running a restaurant, if you are running
But
a
John,
mental
could our
health.
state reps have done a better job?
I am not in the room, but I can tell you that I
mean,
think we need to do more.
The
We
knack
need to
is
do
that
more.
their backbenchers have no sway in Boston when it comes to stuff like this, except to vote what the leadership wants.
So I would say that more needs to be done. I would not say that they've ignored the problem, but more needs to be done.
Would you
And-
pressure
and-
them,
and
Peter?
I would pressure them, and more so I think I would be on the federal level with Congressman Neal, Senator Markey, and Senator Warren saying, you know, this is a national epidemic, and what are you guys doing for it? I think it's a double-sided approach, because a lot of state dollars sometimes comes from federal resources, so we need all hands on deck, both at the federal level and the state level, along with the city. And I think the city is slowly making some progress with that, with the fact that we are changing our policing model and adding some first responders, and we're adding some social workers to the city's
Would you agree
employment.
with John's point about foot patrols, a heavier presence of patrols downtown?
So I do not agree with heavier foot patrols downtown, because I think what we need to do,
Why is that?
when I talk to members of the community, is that we need to change the face of policing. So if John's vision of more foot patrol are more Officer Darren Derbies on downtown Pittsfield doing outreach and getting the community to buy into policing, then I'm on John's side. If it is just a uniformed officer walking up and down the street, and currently, whether they're there or not, it seems to be that we have an issue with panhandling and homeless situation and the activity that's happening in our downtown. If they were there, would they be doing anything, or would they just be patrolling?
John, what is it?
I gotta tell you, I see our police officers in action each and every day. I'm downtown. We have wonderful officers who are excellent at de-escalating. They're professional, they're well-trained, and I do believe that enhancing community policing and what we call boots on the ground, that's a way to build relationships. And it's not punitive. I think when we're developing relationships in our community, and with all due respect, the Pittsfield Police Department, there are more people who have these skills other than Darren Derby. I love Darren, but our police department is diverse in our skills and our strengths, and I feel as though that the community policing model is a good thing. So I've had a conversation with Tom Dolly, the incoming interim chief. I've talked to Tom Boulder about this, Tim Chagru. They all feel the same way, that it is really up to our city to say, you know what, our police department is a vital part of our community, so let's get into community policing and be able to develop those relationships. I think that helps, and it's not a bad thing.
All right,
So if I just
Yeah,
could
Pete,
interject,
please.
I
Yeah,
think
go
there's a
ahead.
big difference by using the term community policing and boots on the ground. I think if you ask the members of the public, what is community policing and what is boots on the ground, people have two different interpretations of what those are.
okay, John?
I'm good.
Okay, let's move on to another area of inquiry. We again touched upon this issue when we did our individuals back earlier this spring, and it's the question of transparency. And everyone who's running for office believes in transparency, and it seems to hold up until you attain office. And of course, each election cycle, voters and citizens hope it's going to be different this time. But we know philosophically that both of you are committed, at least on the campaign trail, to transparency. What about personal transparency? This is kind of yes or no, but would both of you be willing to release your resumes, your work history?
My work history is already out there. It's on LinkedIn. You can go see it right now. I will give it to you, Dan. We'll put it on the website. That's very much the case.
Peter?
Absolutely. I think I've put my resume out there already in the campaign. My resume is somewhat boring because from a career perspective, I have spent 35 years with the same employer, so there's not a lot to talk about in the resume except for my growth from a teller to senior vice president of retail banking and operations.
So we
And
have a vice president here for the bank. We have a former vice president here on council. I mean,
and
sitting among greatness here.
you know,
Or
the other
between.
the other piece of the resume that I've put out there and is my community involvement, my community service, and the organizations that I've worked for in the past, the organizations that I currently am working for. So resume, no problem. And you know,
Okay,
to do one more kudos where John and I agree, all of the doors would be open in City Hall on July 2nd, 2004, regardless of who's won. And that would be a conversation
July
with
or
January 2nd, 2004,
Okay.
24. But that would be a conversation with the police staff as well, because it's my understanding every time I engage in the conversation, it's a safety matter. Well, when you're sitting in council chambers and you're sitting in the dais, and John will know this, if somebody walks into the room that decides that they want to open shoot on us,
It's going to happen.
There's no way out.
Right.
Right? There's no way
It's gonna
out.
happen,
And if it comes in one door or four doors,
I've never bought the security
You're
thing.
not-
I
you're
don't
not
think.
protecting us.
Yeah,
So-
I
Okay,
think
what
that's
about
a-
salary histories? Will you release those?
What your tax
Sal-
documents?
That's the next one. Would you make your tax returns available?
No.
Why not?
I just don't think that's appropriate.
So you think it's not the people's business to know that?
No.
What about
Tax returns?
at other levels? It's called for at every other level. Why not municipal?
I just don't think that's appropriate.
Okay,
It's
Pete?
personal stuff.
I wouldn't object to it, but I mean, from my perspective, it would only show that I'm running for a job that pays me less money than what I currently make today. And so, for all the people that think you're running for mayor for fame and fortune, and that's not my case. If I was to win, there would be a salary reduction.
Okay, so I guess we more or less, how would you rate that? Okay, yeah, transparent. We'll see what happens when you get in. I know we've talked
Let
about
me
this.
just say, Dan,
Yeah.
I intend on being the most accessible mayor in the history of Pittsfield. Open door policy, when you talk about an open door policy, the policy it means the door actually has to be open. We talked about removing the outside door to the City Hall mayor's office suite. I think that is something that we'll definitely look into. But
Taking the door out.
taking the door to that suite out. That
What do
you
you
know,
think about that, Pete?
Well,
take it off the hinges.
Even as a symbolic move, that would be kind
I mean, I think as a symbolic move, it would be wonderful. But you have two other offices that are there, and so for the protection of the documentation and the equipment that's there, I'm not so sure that I would to go that far. But from my perspective, we talk about to be accessible. We're already talking in the campaign that we're going to create roundtables on a quarterly basis with certain sectors of the population to make sure that we're getting input, and I'm happy to do community town halls on a quarterly basis and
Will
say
you
to
show up downtown?
and say to the
as a
public,
presence?
I will show up downtown as a presence.
I know you
I show
said
up
you would.
downtown every day, and
Yeah.
you know the other thing is there are two additional people who work in the mayor's office. It is my intention, and I worked in the mayor's office for 2 years, and it was completely unacceptable for the phone to ring and for it to go to voicemail. What we need to do is have a human being always answering the phone in the mayor's office, and that's just a strategic thing. It's an organizational thing. If someone has to go out to lunch or has something to do out of the office, then you bring someone down from community development to cover the phones. That's something that I will do, and also a weekly open press conference. So we're sitting here having a conversation. We looked at, Brittany Polito is here at this event. What we would like to do is once a week have an hour press conference where it's open season. And, sometimes it may be very boring, because we're just catching up on the latest. And it may be the case, and Dan, if on a scale of 1 of the mayor can't be reached for comment to 10, we're seeing this mayor so much that we're getting sick and tired of seeing him. I would rather be closer to 10 on that as far as that goes.
Are we
because
gonna
I
get
feel as though
sick of seeing your face, Peter?
I
I
think
mean, what do you think of that idea though, like a weekly, fellas and,
I'm
ladies
game.
and gentlemen, come on in.
I'm
What do you got?
game, but most things that I see happen in the community, after it has been used ad nauseum, they seem to fall out. So it's great to say that, and to promise, and I could make the same promise of a weekly press conference, but I would bet you by year 3 or 4 it would kind of peter out, that people wouldn't really be interested in doing it if the press conferences were just, hey, how's it going? Because press conferences really should be for the initiatives that you're rolling out. And so
It's not a press conference. It's just a press meeting, and I think it's a regular update. And the thing is, if you get 3 great years of it where people are engaged, and then I'll take it. I'll take it, and I feel as though we really need that, because the people of Pittsfield, when I'm talking to people each and every day, they feel a disconnect to City Hall. They feel a disconnect that they're not seeing the mayor, that the mayor is not engaged right now, and I really feel like the mayor is a moral leader in the community. And as it was mentioned before, I have an expansive view of the mayor's position. It's not just about operating city departments. It's not about just putting out a budget. It's about leading the entire community on the big issues, whether
Okay,
it's mental health or economic development.
Let me just stop you right there. Basically, it's a knock against the mayor's office, the current mayor, Linda Tyre. Peter, do you agree with that? She's not been open enough, and would you improve upon that?
So this is no secret. I have had a number of conversations with the mayor where she does not communicate with the public enough. And when I have the conversations with the mayor, she feels that it's producing the work that is the important piece, and I think that's a personality trait that mayors have. And if we go back over the history of mayors, we know the ones that are down in the office, working on the stuff, and then we know the mayors that are really out there on the street promoting to the public what they're doing. And I share that philosophy, to sit behind my desk, do my work, and then share with the public.
Are you proud to accept her endorsement, Mayor Tyre's
So
endorsement?
from my perspective, I will accept any endorsement that comes my way. The most important endorsement that I will get are the voters of Pittsfield that will elect me the next mayor of the city of Pittsfield.
John, what about that? The mayor has endorsed Peter.
Yeah, that's not unexpected. That's not unexpected.
So let's correct
And-
the record. The mayor has not endorsed.
Well, not officially.
Well, but she has not endorsed, so let's keep
But
this.
tacitly.
Let's keep this on facts.
Well, she did donate $250 to your campaign.
Well, she did.
So that's pretty much endorsement. But
I would say.
But I feel that is a really great point. What does Pittsfield need today as far as moving forward? And I think it is time for the transparency, but it's also, we need a cheerleader. We need to be able to accomplish things, and that means people have to feel good about Pittsfield again. And so when we revitalized downtown Pittsfield for the first time, it was in part because people were excited. We were talking about making Pittsfield the greatest small city in the Northeast, and people believed it. And we all believed it, and that's why I came to work for the mayor at that time. So, and that's the fire that still burns today.
Are you ready to become a cheerleader, Peter?
I think in a number of ways I've been a cheerleader. I haven't been in the corner office, so I don't control the major message, but I think for the city of Pittsfield, and Dan, here's one where we'll disagree, but I was driving here thinking about it. I should get Dan Valenti in the parade so that Dan Valenti can hear his cheering section waving to him, and Dan Valenti can see the people that come to downtown Pittsfield that enjoy a parade, to see the other side of things, because Dan's not a parade goer. Dan doesn't like the 4th of July parade. Dan thinks that the 4th of July parade is a waste of money, yet the community rallies behind that parade and comes downtown for a really great event. And so I think I have a proven track record of already being a cheerleader with some of the things that I do in the community, and getting into the corner office would only be an expansion of that
Fair
cheerleading
point.
skills.
Fair point.
Dan, you don't like the parade? Who doesn't like the parade?
Well,
Come on, Dan.
we could do a whole hour on the parade, we could do
I mean,
2
the
hours
parade-
on the parade, but my
Yeah.
point is that Pittsfield could produce a decent, small town, Norman Rockwell, apple pie, and Chevrolet parade for far less than $100,000.
Dan, they want music. They want music. They want the
You
mummers.
have the
They want marching
Pittsfield
bands.
High Band, you have the Taconic Band, and you have the Berkshire Eagles, and
Oh, we need
there
to
you
do,
go.
we need to do a timeout because I thought this was going to be the moderator beating up the candidates, not the candidates joining forces beating up the outside. I kind of like this.
That's actually pretty good. We could have a clown get out of the back seat of a station wagon. I mean, that'd be enough parade for me.
As long as it's not a hearse.
Okay.
You don't want anything coming out of a hearse.
All right. Well, you mentioned history. Pittsfield was founded in 1761.
Yes.
It took 243 of those years to get the town, then city budget up to $100 million. It took 19 years to go from 100 million to now exceeding 200 million. $250 million, or pretty close to that. Is city spending out of control? Peter, you're council vice president, you are a co-governor.
Council
You
President.
could have stepped in and possibly found cuts to that budget that were not found. We are at $205 million. Are you okay with that?
So, I'm not okay with the way that we do our budget because I think our budgets are just take what we did last year, add a certain percentage, and move on.
Well, why didn't you throw it back to the corner office and
because-
say, look,
be-
come down a bit on this?
Because I think that we send mixed messages. We as a community say that our teachers are underpaid, they need more. We say that our police are underpaid, they need more. We say that all of our city employees are underpaid, they need more. We know. if
Who
we-
is saying that? Is it the guy on the street saying that? You think they would say that?
Well, I think most of our city employees are saying that.
Well, the city
And-
employees,
and
of course they
When
would.
we do the data to show that what our police officers are being paid as compared to other police forces of the cities our size, our numbers are not comparable. I think the same is true for teachers, and that
Do you have numbers that would back that up?
I can get you numbers that
Can
can
you-
back that up.
Would you please do
I'd
that?
be happy to do that.
Okay.
And so, are there things that could be cut? Yes, but we talk about health insurance, and that's a premium benefit for our citizens, and we have worked over years to go into the GIC, come out of the GIC. What are those things? If we look at the cost, and you're talking about a budget that goes from 100 million to 200, let's do that same insurance cost from those two time periods and see that growth.
Okay, but the response to that would be the city picks up 85% of the city employees' insurance cost. That is considered a luxurious number in the dreaded private sector. What about going down to 75-25? We're talking third rail here, I understand, 60-40. Cities are obligated to provide at least half of the premium bill.
So
Why not touch that?
To go back to the transparency piece, I think that as we form our first budgets, everything needs to be on the table.
Was that
And-
on the
and-
table at all, seriously? Would you say, look into the?
No,
canvas?
because there are already contracts, right? And so
You
it's-
you can reopen contracts and negotiate.
Sure you can, and it's not
You
going
don't-
to be the easiest thing to have happen.
Of course it won't, but
and,
that's the
and,
tough
you know,
stuff.
to John's point earlier, there isn't a single place in Pittsfield that staffing is not an issue, and in the dreaded private sector, if you were to do a study, the starting wages of businesses within our community are changing quickly. You can get $20 an hour to serve coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and so.
Going right
And they have billboards right out, or not billboards, but lawn signs right out in front of their businesses dictating that kind of information. And so we are in a society that is changing. And if the city of Pittsfield doesn't keep up on the wage front, we are going to lose some valuable
Well, Peter,
employees.
let me just ask you this. As council president, the leader of that group, did you guys do enough this budget cycle? That's a yes or no.
I think when we get budgets, they're pretty lean as it is, and so we did what we could.
John, is this a lean budget?
This is how I would approach things in regard to the budget. There are, first of all, I do believe that health insurance is something that is valuable for our employees, and those premiums, they should stay the same. I will not change that, just to answer that question for our employees. They work hard. Benefits is something that's good for public workers, and we should maintain that. There are two areas that I think have great opportunities in regard to the long-term savings. Number one, look at the health insurance. I look at it as health care, because it's not just about what we pay to benefit the employees. It's also what we negotiate with healthcare providers. And I'm going to take a hard look at that. What are the costs? For example, what is the cost of a knee replacement at hospital A and a knee replacement at hospital B? What is the lower cost? And then how do we encourage
Do you think
our...
significant savings could be found there?
I think we can. I think if we work at that and really work with Blue Cross Blue Shield and have everything on the table, because again, as Peter said, we went to the GIC at one point and there were significant savings.
Are you satisfied with the City Council's performance approving a budget that is $205 million?
Listen, it's hard to criticize people who are in that chair. Look,
Well, John, you're going for an office that's
listen,
going to be in that
I'll
chair.
be presenting a budget to those people, those individuals who I respect immensely, and I'm not going to criticize them for approving or
Well,
disapproving
what about a
budget.
John Krol
But there's
budget
one-
first
there's-
time?
There's
Would
one
it-
more thing
Would it be a flat budget? Would you anticipate increasing costs of government?
I think this is another area of savings that we can look at. A decade ago, an education task force looked at all of education, public schools in Berkshire County, and said that there was $30 million worth of savings possible by going toward one district for all of Berkshire County. Now, that's not going to happen politically. It's absolutely, talk about third rails. Many districts, they have their own fiefdoms, but Pittsfield can lead the charge in regard to starting to share services with some of these other districts who are already balancing their budget on the backs of Pittsfield families.
What about,
School choice, let me finish, Dan. School choice is such a huge amount of dollars that leave our budget and go to other districts. We have to start working with these other districts to be able to find savings, because we want most of the dollars, more of the dollars, to go to the classroom
Why would
as
parents-
opposed to overlapping administration. And I think that is one of the best areas of opportunity for saving in the Pittsfield city budget.
Pittsfield is losing millions of dollars through school choice. Why would parents want to continue to send their children to failing schools, which the Pittsfield schools clearly are? I don't know if you accept that statement or not, but parents are looking for the best education for their children. They are speaking by exiting the school system. Do we need to, how much time do we have for this segment?
30 seconds.
Okay, let's leave that question hanging. We're gonna pause for a break right now. We will be back with
How we
Peter
doing?
Marchetti and
Oh,
John
sorry.
Krol right after this. And welcome back, Dan Valenti here on Planet Valenti Video. Be able to access this broadcast as soon as we can finish processing it. It may be as early as today, but I'll let you know certainly on the Planet, www.planetvalenti.com, which is a sponsor of this debate, in addition to Europolis Management. And we do thank Kathy Mickle for making this space available to us. And back now with Peter Marchetti and John Krol, and we left a question on the table. I forgot what it was. But
School choice deficit.
School choice, yeah. We're losing millions of dollars. Parents are voting with their decision to remove their pupils and students from Pittsfield. Clearly there is something going on in the schools that, despite the rising cost of the school department, the perception, and I think the numbers would show that performance is declining. Fellas, Pete?
So school choice has been an issue. Going back to probably my first days on the city council, John and I served together as president and vice president for 4 years. It's been a problem ever since. It's why, as part of my platform, proposing teachers and paraprofessional roundtables, because I think the answer and the solution to school choice people out is within our classrooms. And I think too many times we have the conversations with the administrators and not with the teachers and the paraprofessionals. And those are the people that see firsthand what happens. I also think that sometimes people choose to choice out because they feel that our school system isn't so safe, and they go to other communities. I would love to be able to get the real data about the safeness of our schools and our surrounding community schools. I think that Pittsfield's always going to make the front page of the Berkshire Eagle. That's where the front and center. And the smaller communities who have similar problems to ours don't necessarily make the front page.
As the budget hearings dealt with the school department, you heard two stories. One was from the administrators, which it was basically a rosy picture they painted. The paraprofessionals came up and talked about being spit upon, being assaulted, being confronted with foul language, physically afraid of their own personal safety. There seems to be a huge disconnect there.
There is, and so I don't think we really need data at this point. We know where the issues are, and I have paraprofessional and teacher roundtables every single day. I'm married to a teacher in the Pittsfield Public Schools, and I really understand it. I mean, teachers have been assaulted, paras have been assaulted, and Reed Middle School is a big problem.
How do we
right
gain
now.
control of the classroom?
So let's talk about this, because I feel as though when it comes down to it, let's be very clear. The Pittsfield Public Schools have some of the finest teachers, paras, and administrators in the entire county. There's no question about it. And Pittsfield High School is a shining light right now in our school district. Taconic High School is doing very well. Our elementary schools are really the core of many families in our city. Let's make no mistake about that. We really have a challenge at the middle school level. So I would look at things and understand, hey, when you have a classroom of 22 kids and there are 2 or 3 very much problem kids who are disruptions, we are not doing a good job in managing that situation. We really have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, how do we do this better? For me, it is about putting more of the resources in the classroom. At Stearns Elementary School, there is a pilot program that has 2 full-time teachers and a para in every single classroom. We have to make sure that those classrooms have the support. So that is my philosophy overall, is to say, how do we look at the school budget and emphasize most of the dollars or more of the dollars, making sure that it's engaging the kids in the classroom.
How much
That's
is the
number one.
superintendent on the hot seat as far as you would be concerned as mayor for the product that the Pittsfield Public Schools are turning out? Question for both of you, Pete.
He's the main guy. You know, he is the.
What kind of a relationship would you anticipate between the corner office and the superintendent?
I would consider it an overall positive, but I would also consider it a constant push back and forth. We're not going to accept the status quo. You know, during budget hearings, we heard from the principal at Crosby. There was some really new, innovative ways to be in touch with the students, and so when we start using the phrases, well, there's an administrator as a principal who gets it and is working with the teachers, and that's the atmosphere that we need to create.
Is Joe Curtis doing that now with Linda Tyre?
I can't speak for what Joe and Linda do.
From what you observe?
From what I can see, and it's just totally by observation. I think it's a budget time conversation, and I don't see others. I'm not saying it's not happening because I'm not
Okay.
in
Fair
that
enough.
office.
John, the relationship with the super, first of all, is that relationship working now, do you think, and how will it change?
I don't know
with John Krol?
what Joe Curtis and Linda Tyre's relationship is. I know that I have a relationship with Joe Curtis. I've met with him one time in the last couple of months. I've had conversations with him.
Is he someone you respect?
I do. I respect Joe Curtis. You know, I think his heart is in the right place. What I do think is that there are opportunities.
You know, when I hear his heart is in the right place, I'm actually hearing but, however.
Look, I think when it comes down to it, the approach needs to focus on, you know, we have teachers who are getting burnt out because they do a heck of a job, and the policy within the school district is that if you are doing a great job, the principal has the veto power, and that teacher does not have mobility to go to other grades or even other schools within the district. I know they're working on this right now to change it within the school system, but that means to
That's something you would push?
because we want to keep our great teachers. We're losing mentors, we're losing people who have institutional knowledge, and some of the finest teachers have been forced to go to other school districts because of that protocol within the district. So, we really need to push that and change that. I've spoken to Marissa Mendonza about this as well. She's, I think, a big asset for our school district, no question about it. And I would also look at the whole concept of middle school, Dan. Who had this concept to say, we're going to have a school with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, they look at the United States of America and say, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
So I think as we look at the schools and we have strategic conversations moving forward, we should really consider a K to 6 program. And 7, 8, perhaps immerse 1 or 2 of those grades into high school. We have to think differently.
Should Pittsfield
about
close
that.
a school or two?
We're going through that process right now to have a conversation. I know Peter has talked about it.
Would you push that, John?
We have 2 schools that are open classroom concepts, which is outdated. We have to look at that hard and fast. The issue there is we have a Morningside neighborhood and a West Side neighborhood that have been underserved, and it is a stain on our city that those have been the schools that were never renovated during the 90s, and also Crosby Elementary School.
Pete, school closings.
When we go through this study and we develop a strategic plan, there should be one school or more that close.
Should there be one high school?
No.
No, listen, we had this conversation in 2009. And these things don't happen in 1 or 2 year cycles, they happen in decade cycles. So in 2009, Jim Roberto was running against Dan Bianchi. Jim Roberto wanted 2 schools on 1 campus, and that was the concept. The opposition began putting out the idea that Jim Roberto wants a mega school, and the voters got scared. And a consultant for Jim Roberto said, "You better lay off on the on the 2 schools, one campus concept, or you're going to lose." And so they went back to 2 schools as the concept. So Taconic High School was done. I believe that Pittsfield High School has an opportunity to be the performing arts and liberal arts hub of Berkshire County, and even a possibility of creating a performing arts magnet school within PHS. We have to start thinking about how do we draw students into Pittsfield, and by doing something like a performing arts magnet school, I could imagine many kids from Great Barrington, Housatonic, Williamstown, coming to Pittsfield to be in a school
So,
like that.
I mean, I said no to just one high school, and specifically for some of the similar reasons. Taconic making the transition to a vocational school, Pittsfield High. I just had a meeting recently, and John's talking about a performing arts magnet school. Just had a meeting with those group of people. I'm sure John had the meeting with them as well. I immediately went to the superintendent to learn that this is something that's been in conversation for 12 to 18 months already. Again, it's a fantastic idea. It will draw students from other places. It's not getting the attention it needs. And it's the same thing. We talked earlier about having someone like George Haddad come in and create a program at Toyota to give us some national exposure. What else can we be doing? A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, 2 months ago, time flies, but Taconic had the production of Mamma Mia, a top-notch performance by our high school kids. The new theater director had been in the school for less than 4 months, and they put on a phenomenal show. I've been to a number of the shows at Pittsfield High School, same thing. So if we have students that their desire in life is to be performing arts, whether it be theater, whether it be chorus, whether it be some kind of musical instrument.
And wait on tables in the daytime.
Well, but if that's their desire,
Yeah.
and from my perspective,
No, I understand.
I think part of our problem is that we are not going to the next generation and saying, what do you want to be? We're telling them what they should be. And look,
That's a great point. I agree.
not
We do.
if you want to be an actor,
Yeah.
then let's be honest with them, and the road to being an actor is a hard one. And so yes, you're going to be waiting on tables during the day, or yes, you're going to be bartending someplace on the nights that you don't have a show, but if that is your dream, We should be encouraging those people. So we take the Stephanie Wilsons, we take the Catherine Winstons, we take the people who have been from Pittsfield and have made it big on the national stage. We need to be encouraging every child in the Pittsfield public school systems to achieve their dream, whatever it may be.
Years ago, it was Elaine Giftos who went on to have a very good career in television.
Elizabeth Banks.
Pittsfield. That's a pretty long list. And I agree too. It's something I always advised my students when I was teaching at the college level is, you're young, pursue a dream, pursue your passion. Everybody's going to try to talk you out of it. I think that's an excellent point.
Right.
Because that happens so often.
And that's a good point with Elizabeth Banks, because Pittsfield High School was the core of what she was, and she had a great career at Pittsfield High School. She went to my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, and then she worked her tail off to do it. But there's also other students who don't go to the traditional college. They'll go to the Berkeley School, they'll go to the Carnegie School, the Hart School of Music. So there is a pipeline.
But back to the trades, the point about the
but
trades.
here's the thing, and that's why the two school concept. So it wasn't until now that we were using, starting now, using every one of those slots at Taconic High School for the career tech education. And that is so very important. I had a conversation with one of the key manufacturing regional people from General Dynamics a couple of days ago, and not only did he encourage Taconic to have more CTE, but he wants to dip into the middle school further. So I can imagine General Dynamics working with the schools, with the mayor leading the charge, to go deeply even into middle school to give kids who are not your traditional students, give them the pathway to more tactile function and into the trades that really gives them a job. General Dynamics has contracts 30 years into the future already signed. There will be many, many jobs for kids who go in that direction. So I think, like as Peter said, working with George Haddad, we got to do the same thing with General Dynamics and every other, and also the unions. So the union tradespeople feel as though that we can do a better job in making sure those students graduate, and they're able to work with those organizations to make sure they have benefits and the kind of information that they need to get the best benefits as a union member.
Fellas, I'm going to roll the chair back figuratively because there's actually no room back me. But I want to give the floor to you guys to kind of address each other, maybe question each other, and I'll just get it started by saying, where do you see the greatest contrast between yourself and your opponent's campaign? John? What's the difference here?
Listen, I love Peter, and I think people.
We all love Peter,
and I think people will
point.
see the difference. When I look at the mayor's position, it is one where you need to elevate the community. You need to be able to make sure people feel great about this city and know that we are looking for opportunities each and every day. So when it comes to the downtown, we need a bagel shop in downtown Pittsfield. We got to talk to Bob at Barrington Bagel to open that shop in downtown Pittsfield that he's always talked about. We need a chocolate shop. We need a bakery. We need to be recruiting people. We need to go out and sell the city of Pittsfield. We have so much happening here. There are other communities that our downtown would be the envy of. Can you imagine a Tony Award-winning theater company, a 6-screen stadium seat theater, a boutique hotel that's world-class, a downtown hardware store? We have to be able to...
So there's getting back to your slogan, reignite, but that's what you see
fire.
as the big difference. Pete, he talks about fire, basically implying that he doesn't see it here.
Well, I think that we're two different personalities, and to be very frank, I think I share some of John's stuff. This is a Marchetti for Mayor campaign. I don't really care what John Krol for Mayor is doing, right? Pete's going to run his own campaign. Pete's going to highlight his own skill set. Pete's going to highlight his 35 years in the business community and how he can take those skills and put it to Pittsfield. Yes, he'll also have to do some cheerleading. Yes, he has to promote a city that's already there, and I agree with John in the fact that we have Barrington Stage and the Colonial Theater and Hotel on North and the Beacon Cinema. Those are all there. But we also have to, in my opinion, address the fundamental perception of what Pittsfield is before we can start bringing all this stuff in. Maybe it can be at the same time, but when I talk to members of people from outside the Berkshires, and this is like one of our key failures, they will come to Pittsfield for a show at the Colonial Theater or Barrington Stage, but on their way up from South County, they stop in Lenox and eat because they want to minimize their amount of time in the city of Pittsfield.
So
and
is
that
this-
is an issue that we have to be addressing day number one.
Is this
And
a matter of style then, or is there a fundamental difference in the core of what you guys are saying?
I think it's a personality thing. And
So
if
basically it's a
people,
style.
if people ask me, I'm the first one to say, John is clearly more charismatic than I am. But
What do you want to ask John Krol?
I hate this part, Dan. This is
you
so
know,
lame.
again-
I'm just kidding.
again,
I'm just kidding.
I'm going back to this is a Marchetti for Mayor campaign, and I'm going to stay in the lane of the Marchetti for Mayor campaign. I'm going to tell the voters why I'm the better choice. I'm not going to tell the voters why John's a bad choice. I'm going to tell them why I'm the better choice.
Is John a bad choice?
If I wasn't in the race, he wouldn't be a bad choice, but I'm in the race, so he's a bad choice.
John,
Listen,
you've been
you know-
wanting to ask this guy something. I know it. What is it?
No, listen. If I wanted to ask Peter something, I would have asked him. We
Do
see
it
each
right
other all
now.
the time. Listen, like when it comes down to it, I think there is a big difference, and when it comes
Okay, so
down to
what
it.
is that?
Well, you just
said
said
a
it.
Big,
You just said it.
Big
Listen,
difference.
I was in the mayor's office, and my mentor is Jim Roberto, and that is the only way I really know how to be mayor as it relates to the approach. And the approach is we're always looking for opportunities. We're always looking to sell the city, and this downtown needs a revitalization yet again. We have stagnation happening. The bike lanes are a big issue. I knock on doors every day, and people are just not happy. They're confused by the bike lanes. We need a reset on that, and we need to get the large bike lanes removed from downtown Pittsfield, for example. So, in some of these cases, it's just about, look, Pittsfield is a great place, and we have to sell it. We have to deliver that.
I'll say this, at least you said a renovation and not a renaissance. So I'm relieved about that. Let me give you some yes or no's here pertaining to the budget. $85,000 for a helipad at the Pittsfield Airport. Yes or no, Pete?
Yes.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, they both want that. More than $1 million, actually $1,005,000, I believe, for more parking at Deming, which means less park space. Okay with that?
Yes.
I hear from parents all the time about the challenges there. My kids play at Deming all the time. My one thing is I don't like if it's all asphalt. I feel like it should be a different material. But we definitely
you're
need more
okay
parking
with that,
there.
basically.
I'm okay with the
$3.5
concept,
million
details.
for Springside Park.
For
Springside House.
we got to finish the job.
Absolutely.
Agreement here. The Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity, or Diversion of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, was the subject of my column today on the Planet. I said I would ask you guys about it. I think the track record now, and basically it took off since the death of George Floyd in 2020, and that thing really got going. It's to the point now where traditional so-called progressive and liberal outlets are saying it has not worked. It is counterproductive. It's an unnecessary expense. And what I said in my column, that it actually promotes what it says is against, which is identity politics, favoritism based on the color of your skin or some other factors. Do we need to fund that office, and will you continue to support that office as mayor, Peter?
So I think we need to fund the office, and I also think that we need to evaluate its performance after like a 3-year history.
You
And
give
so-
it 3 years and
so-
then let's look.
So let's look. I appreciate the fact that in your introduction of the position, you talked about people of color and other people. Well, I happen to have grown up in a community being one of those other people. And so I've been one of those people.
Who would you
who-
define as preferred classes? I'm sorry. Finish that thought. You grew up.
So I grew up in a community where it
And we're
wasn't
talking-
it wasn't always easy to be who you were, and there weren't people open like me growing up.
But today
And so,
there is.
well, today there is, but there is also, if you are a student in the Pittsfield public school system, and you happen to be a person of color, when you're walking around your school building during the course of the day, how many people like you do you see?
Do you think this office, though, a bureaucratic office with administrative expenses, is going to change what's in people's hearts? This is what I'm getting
So
at.
I
really.
think
and the
that,
data shows that it has not
So- but-
worked.
I think the data also shows that in some cases, if you educate and deal with, and for all of us, and this is where it shuts down for everyone. Do you believe that you have implicit bias? And if you tell me no, then I already know that that's why you need a DEI office.
Do you
because
have implicit bias?
I do.
Okay. I think every human
I
being
do.
walking on the face of the
But
earth does.
so therefore we act on those. And do we act on those the way that we should? Or do we act on those based on those implicit
Well,
biases?
my
that we
point
have?
is that it's a matter of the human heart, which is actually beyond government's ability to meaningfully affect. We changed from a smoking society to a non-smoking society because of education. We did that with other issues. I don't think we can do that with a bureaucratic and administrative approach. And again, I tried to include information from several sources, including one very progressive, The Atlantic, that just said, The Atlantic Monthly, that said, this just clearly does not work and it's causing a boomerang effect. John,
I think.
would you fund the office and keep it going?
Yeah, I mean, before ever removing something, you have to evaluate it. So coming in as a new mayor, you definitely have to evaluate, and I think.
How do you judge whether
Well,
that's
the,
working?
the numbers, you have to look at the numbers and say, do we have progress?
Well,
And-
is that just saying, have we hired more of this protected class? Have we hired more of that protected class, irrespective of their abilities? That's what identity
Yeah.
politics is.
I understand that. So basically, when you look at that, you set the parameters and you judge it upon that. And so, yep.
Okay, yeah, we have 4 minutes here in this segment, and, all right, the capital improvements budget was almost $44 million for this year, and it has a host of projects. We mentioned just a couple of them. But there is also a long-term capital improvements request as part of the budget statement. And between between FY 2004, so as of July 1st, through that same date on July 2028, the capital budget request is almost $308 million. Most of which will be paid for by debt. Have you looked over that long-term plan, Peter, which would cover your years as mayor, and are you okay with it, or is it too ambitious?
So I've looked at that plan every year since the charter changed in 2013. Part of the new city charter was that the administration needs to provide a capital improvement plan. I think that document is very valuable. That document shows us all of the areas of this community that need resources. And that 300 and something million dollars that you're claiming are not borrowings, and some of that may not come to fruition. So for example, for as long as John and I served together, there was probably a $50 million category for a new police station that is still being pushed further and further and further and further down that list. There are many items on that list that will be pushed further and further and further down that
So it's
list.
sort of like a wish list.
And
Yeah.
it's a wish list. But I think we need to take that wish list seriously, because if there are areas that really need improvements, we
No
know
question.
that we know the
But-
cost of it today compared to the cost of it 10 years from now are only going to escalate. So we need to be investing in our buildings.
Well,
need
maybe
to
that
be
was a reason to do Wacona Park back in 2,000, whatever, instead of 50 million for Wacona Park? Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, well, we should have, the Jim Bouton plan, we should have done that,
Okay.
back in the day.
But-
But I mean, but absolutely, I mean, we have to,
Okay, so that's,
Wacona Park
that's a yes.
is a incredible resource, but when we invest in Wacona Park, it can't just be for baseball. It wasn't long
Exactly.
long ago
A
that we
multi-use
had
facility.
Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson performing at Wacona Park.
We had
I'll say,
boxing, we had wrestling,
and that's fantastic.
we had
We have
football.
drum corps shows to help support
The
brain.
drum corps competitions.
Exactly. So, like, you know, there's no reason why Pittsfield cannot host the kind of performing arts that Tanglewood does.
But let me ask
you know, we've brought 10,000 people to Wacona Park for Bob Dylan, and it was the best run concert I've seen in my life. The police, everybody together, it was amazing. We can do this.
He even knew where he was in that concert. I remember it well. But
I said,
size
I
of
love Pittsfield, Dan. I love
size
Pittsfield.
of Pittsfield
Quote.
government spending, that trying to tie all of this together, just what it should be. Can we? And I know you'll say we can spend more wisely and all of that, but seriously, will that be an issue that keeps you up at night trying to solve? To maybe reduce the size and cost of government while improving services?
I think that, I can speak for both of us in that case. I
Yeah.
think that will keep us up. I think
The
that
question is, how
will.
do we get there, you know?
But I think that it's a case of having to go through your budget and start from scratch. Don't start.
Seconds.
We have covered a lot of ground, not nearly enough. We hope throughout the campaign, fellas, that we can continue these kind of informal discussions, which I maintain are an important and maybe vital adjunct to the more formal debates that I'm sure we'll later see with the podiums and all of that stuff. We do it differently here, and fellas, I'll give you a closing statement, a way to wrap this up, and we started with John. So Peter, let's have you address those people out there.
So I look forward to the next 6 months of knocking on doors and meeting and greeting with people and having conversations with people. Here's my ideas. It's okay to push back and tell me where I need to make some improvements. That's the conversations that I'm having with community groups. That's the conversations I'm having with people across the city. I want to lead you. I want to be your cheerleader. Maybe not as charismatic as John will be, but I will get the job done, and I think that my track record proves I can get the job done.
Thanks, Pete, and John, how about wrapping up for our good friends out
Thank you
there?
very much, Dan. Thanks for
Yeah,
doing
well,
this,
thanks
and
to both
thank
of
you,
you.
Thank you.
Peter. Gosh, I've had the opportunity to talk to a 100-year-old resident, a 95-year-old resident at their home, and I've had the chance to meet a 23-year-old single mother knocking on doors in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. You know, this position is all about the people, and that's how I intend to run the office. I intend to be the most accessible mayor in the history of Pittsfield, and that's why I am knocking on every single door in this city so we can have conversations at the doorstep. You know, Pittsfield has such potential. There is so much we can do, but we have to have the guts to do it. We have to have the energy, and we need a cheerleader, but someone who has been there before. I've worked in the mayor's office for 2 years, as a city councilor for a decade, and I know my way around City Hall, and we're going to do it. So let's elevate our city, let's make it the Berkshire City, and we can do this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, fellas. As a closing note, will you agree to come in periodically, schedule permitting, for this type of informal chat?
Works for me.
Sounds good. Love it.
Let's see you guys shake hands on
All
that.
right. Nice to see you again, Peter.
All right. Well, again, thanks to Peter Marchetti and John Krol, our good friends. All of you out there who are watching, thanks also to Dave Lubrisky, who helped produce and direct this show. Thank you to Kathy Nickel for making the space available to us. Thank you to Lisa Valenti for being here, moral support and whatever. Thank you to Brittany Polito, who showed up from iBerkshires. We invited the Berkshire Eagle. They decided not to come, which is their choice. And we remind you, we will have this video and broadcast available on Planet Valenti Video. That is our YouTube channel. I'm sure it will be posted on planetvalenti.com, on Facebook, and probably elsewhere. And I do hope on the respective websites of the candidates, because I think we haven't nearly covered as many issues as we wanted, but we did good in covering some of the essentials, and to get a sense of who these two candidates are. You've known them in their previous incarnations. Peter, currently president of the city council. John has been active in public life for a long time. But I think as we do these, we'll get a better chance and a better sense of who is Peter Marchetti, who is John Krol, and most importantly for you out there, if you do vote, who will make the best mayor for the city of Pittsfield. I'm Dan Valenti saying so long, everybody, and thanks for joining us.